This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
And take two. This is Wretched Radio. So, Tony, I hear you're having some back problems. Is that true?
It is.
Uh-huh. Well, God meant that for good. So just know all things work together for good. This is Wretched Radio. I am so glad that I helped Tony with his backache right now.
I'm all better.
This is Gavin Ortland. How not to help a sufferer. Appeal too quickly to God's sovereignty. Do we believe in God's sovereignty? Yes. Yes, we do. Do we always want to apply it first thing when we are introduced to somebody suffering? I don't think so. Look, the only thing that I think helps somebody to ultimately heal when they are hurting, especially when the pain never goes away, is the understanding of God's sovereignty. But that doesn't mean that you have to whack them with it first thing, like somehow that is the pill that they need to take. If they just think rightly about sovereignty, it won't be so painful. Well, it is painful. Some things are just hard. Pain is real. Suffering is not necessarily sinful. And perhaps it's better to enter into their suffering before we start giving them the cure to demonstrate, I don't know, some empathy, some kindness. All these situations, they need to be dealt with on an individual basis, but I can't help but wonder, at least about myself, if my theology is just, I want to be applying it, I want to be helping with it, but that there are times when maybe I just want to hear about somebody's back problems for a while and maybe offer to help a bit. And then if there's a demonstration of a bad attitude, then to work with them thoughtfully, kindly, and courageously at the same time, because that is what is typically required of a biblical counselor. You are kind and courageous. You don't want to be both or one or the other. You do need to be both. There are times when you have to say, Tony, you've been belly aching about that bad back of yours, not to get all anatomically wonky here, but you're belly aching about your bad back. I'm just wondering, why do you think God, where is God in all of this? Could I do, yeah, but maybe he doesn't bellyache at all, and I don't even need to use theology. From Gavin Ortland, God meant it for good is said by Joseph years after his suffering, not to Joseph during his suffering. Imagine Joseph, he's down in the well that his brothers had just thrown him into. Don't worry, Joseph. God means this for good. And then they skedaddle. It's probably not going to be true, but maybe just not the right time. Similarly, right after Paul teaches all things work together for good to those who love him, who are called according to his purpose, that would be your Romans 12:15 Rexella, he admonishes us to weep with those who weep. Before quoting the former, let's be sure we're willing to practice the latter. Number two, way to not help a sufferer. So, Tony, how's that back of yours?
It's fine right now.
You know, I'll tell you, Tony. I'll tell you. I never thought I would get over that lumbago.
I tried to think of something to make him stop. Sorry, go ahead.
And it was,
your lumbago?
I'm not exactly sure what lumbago is, but I had it. And wow, it went on. And, you know, I went from doctor to doctor to doctor. And I just, after suffering for so long, it finally reoriented my thinking to think, wow, just imagine what it's like to have lumbago for eternity in hell. And it caused me to witness to somebody that very day. The lessons that I learned from lumbago. Don't you worry, Tony. You're gonna learn something with your backache. Now, that's true. Timing is the issue here. To the article, one mark of maturity is learning to genuinely enter into the world of another rather than always filtering their story through our own. Oh, come on. Don't tell me you've never done, please tell me you've never done that, because I do that all the time. I can be, you know, I was walking along and the craziest thing happened. There was a construction site 3 miles away, but there was a heavy wind and a saw. It blew right off of the guy's saw machine, and the blade, it cut off my head. And I'll tell you, there I was in the middle of downtown without a head. You know, I remember when I was raising the kids when they were little, I could lose my head so easily. I just get mad at them. And this one time, I got really mad at my daughter. Turns out she didn't even do anything wrong. I lost my head for nothing. What were you saying? Tell me, you've it's unbelievable. We love ourselves so much. The story of somebody's decapitation doesn't capture our attention as much as we capture our own attention. Oh, man. Staggering. Some sorrows won't mend till heaven. So we really don't know enough to be able to say, you'll be glad this happened. That's true, isn't it? You don't know that. And we do that, don't we? Don't you worry, something good's going to come out of this. Now, that is true also. God works all things for our good. But it's kind of loaded with, don't you worry, your house got blown over by a storm. God's going to give you, something good's going to come out of this. Well, maybe it won't. Except for fruit of the Spirit, which we have a tendency to overlook. So, Tony, that back of yours, how is it, that back? Oh, it can't be that bad. Come on. Really? You know, there are people, Johnny Erickson Tata, consider Johnny Erickson Tata.
Yep.
And the kids starving in Africa. Really? Now tell me about your bad back. Okay.
It's a minor real world problem.
But, or we say things like, I'm sure that person who hurt you meant it for good. Well, or maybe they meant well. They didn't really mean to say that about you. Like, you know, they meant well. Well, maybe they didn't. And does it really matter? When you're sitting with a sufferer, don't minimize the sin that has contributed to their suffering. An honest acknowledgement of evil without any excuses or evasions will be to their pain like water to a parched man. We love theology here. We love it. We love it. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, we were just talking about God's sovereignty and having that theology in place before bad things happen. So we're not downplaying theology. We're just talking about time. Tony, ask me, what's the most important thing about suffering?
What's the most important thing about suffering?
Yeah, it's just how do you enter into somebody's world? It should be with a heart that breaks with them first. And I have to confess, that's just not the way I'm inclined to respond to people. And I think we're called to, care? To actually feel it? To weep with those who weep? Yeah, we rejoice with those who rejoice. But, okay, I'll do this in reverse. Hey, Tony, I hear you sinned and you bought a lottery ticket and you won. How much did you win on that lottery?
Tens of thousands of dollars.
You know, I remember once, it was a Sinful Church raffle, and I won $4. That's right, $4. That's what I won. I'll never forget that. That was good. I was able to, back then, you could actually go to Burger King and get a Whopper and a medium fry with a small soda for under $4. You get all of that at the Burger King for $4. And you're going, well, thanks for enjoying. I just won a lot of money, and you need to make it about your dribbly little $4. Same thing is true in suffering conversely. You're in pain. It is genuine. To hear about somebody else's pain, I don't care. I'm hurting right now. So, Tony, how's that back of yours?
What back?
Don't you worry. God's going to shape your character in this. He's going to make you something. He's going to help you to comfort those who are comforted with the same comfort that I'm providing to you right now. Our hurting friend probably doesn't need our love and presence. He probably needs our love and presence far more than our interpretations and ideas. Rather than trying to relieve, or even understand their suffering. Maybe just be there with them, press into the darkness with them, hang in there with them in the moment, in that space, in that pain. Is there a time for good theology to be applied? Of course. Might it even be upfront? Absolutely. But let's do it thoughtfully, and let's make sure that as we try to apply theology to the hurting heart, that we hurt with them. Otherwise, well, we sound about as obnoxious as I was just role-playing, because that's not the way that I would certainly comfort. I read the book of Job, and I think his friends did a pretty good job of comforting him, because that's how rotten I am at it. Maybe, just maybe, you, like I, need just a little bit of an adjustment here. Keep your theology intact. Yes, you apply it. But let us make sure that we do it with a heart of compassion. This is Wretched Radio.
Wretched. We're hip. We're technologically savvy. Would you please join us in liking, subscribing, or sharing this video?